Jerome Corsi received a Ph.D. from Harvard University in political science in 1972. He is currently a senior staff reporter for WorldNet Daily, where he works as an investigative journalist. For over 10 years, Dr. Corsi has been developing Internet-based financial marketing firms. He possesses keen insight into the financial industry, which, when combined with his extensive understanding of politics, has made him one of the most credible political commentators in the world. He writes a weekly subscription newsletter entitled Red Alert on strategic economic issues. He's also the author of the #1 New York Times best-selling books, The Abomination, Leftist Politics, and the Cult of Personality, and America for Sale, The Late Great USA, among other books. He's visited with us before. Let's welcome back to the Global Freedom Report, Dr. Jerome Corsi. Happy New Year, Dr. Corsi. How are you?
Great, Brent. Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you.
For starters, how about a before and after image? Last time we visited was about close to a year ago. Now that the election 2010 is over, what, if any, changes do you see on the horizon with respect to the political landscape in the United States as a result of the midterm elections?
Well, clearly we're going to have a much more conservative Congress. And with the Republicans controlling the House, I think there's going to be the beginnings of pushback on spending. Also much more of a Tea Party influence. I'd encourage people not to be too optimistic about how much spending we're going to be able to control. This is out of control spending. We're at deficits of $1.3 to $1.5 trillion a year right now, and serious cutting is going to have to involve examination and redesign of entitlement programs, and that's going to take a Republican Congress and a Republican president.
Yeah, but we saw what happened last time we had that. Yeah,
I know. Well, I think the Tea Party movement, if the Republican Party stays centrist, and believe me, I'm not a Republican. The only party I ever joined was the Constitution Party. If the Republicans stay centrist, if they stay Lindsey Graham-like or John McCain and comprehensive immigration reform, the Tea Party will next turn on the Republicans. Because I think the Tea Party is serious, and there's not much time left. Because at some point or other, we hit the wall the same way Europe hits the wall, and austerity is going to have to be imposed on the United States, if by nothing else than a credit downgrade. Right now, the economic issues are frightening because we are spending money we don't have. With the Federal Reserve, we're buying our own debt, and we're headed into ratios where our national debt is quickly going to be at more than 100% of our gross domestic product, and this all spells what I've been writing about in America for Sale, which is this is not a recession. This is what globalism looks like, and the ultimate plan here, which I think is going to succeed, is to destroy the dollar, and we're at a very late day to prevent these things from taking place.
Well, let's touch on that. Last time you were on the show was in February 16th. So it's been about 11 months. Now, how would you describe the changes economically, both in the U.S. and around the world, over that period of time? And perhaps you could share some observations or conclusions you've reached about what we have to look forward to by the end of 2011, economically speaking.
The economics have gotten worse. I mean, now you're seeing European nations like Greece and Ireland one step short of defaulting on their sovereign obligations, having to be bailed out by the International Monetary Fund. You see China and Russia moving away from the dollar. Robert Mundell's plan, he's the guy who created the euro. He's the economist at Columbia, to create the International Monetary Fund special drawing rights as an alternative to the dollar in international trade. That plan is advancing, and our deficit situation is growing more desperate. I don't think we're going to have an improvement in unemployment of any significant amount, because if the economy does get stimulated with consumer demand, the jobs that are going to be created in India and China. So I think we're in for a deepening of the economic crisis in the United States through 2011, with a Congress that's going to have to make the American people aware more and more that the massive social welfare state we've built, Republicans and Democrats alike, since the 1930s is no longer affordable.
Well, of course, that's always been the issue. It is not sustainable. Let's talk dollar collapse. Everybody says the dollar's going to collapse. They've been talking about the dollar collapsing for years. The latest is I had someone on the other day who said the dollar will collapse by the end of 2011. There will not be a dollar by 2012. Let's assume that all the pundits, yourself included, are correct, that the dollar's going to collapse. And let's just speculate. The dollar collapses. How does that look? Is that like a building falling down where suddenly there's no dollars? What happens to the money I have in my bank account in the U.S.? What do we do if the dollar collapses? What happens afterward?
A dollar collapse will have several stages to it. One, we're going through it right now, and that is kind of an unstated devaluation. Inflation's going to start. People are going to start seeing food and energy prices go up dramatically. The dollar's going to have less purchasing power. It'll end up having a reduced international status. Fewer countries will want to hold dollars. The pressure will come from the International Monetary Fund, which will basically say that we've either got to impose austerity. We may have a credit downgrading. One of the major credit agencies may downgrade the sovereign debt rating in the United States. There could be pressure to combine a currency with Canada, move towards an Amero or a U.S.-Canadian dollar that combines the two countries together as one economy. But at any rate, through this year, the dollar won't just disappear or go away overnight. That's not going to happen. The dollar collapse really means a dramatic reduction in the purchasing power and the value of the dollar. And that's underway. It'll be incremental, and you'll have to look back to see its real impact. But, just watch the price of food and energy increase through the year, and you'll see the dollar collapse in progress.
Now, along with the dollar collapse, and you're saying it's an ongoing process rather than like a building collapsing, which just
Correct.
happens. So in assuming that to be the case, there will come a point, I presume, where the world says the dollar is so weak that we're no longer going to use it for the central reserve currency around the world.
Correct.
We won't measure everything in dollars, gold in dollars, oil in dollars, etc. What happens then? We're certainly not going to the euro.
Well, you see what begins to happen is that you, for instance, have again, it'll be progressive, step by step. You'll have the International Monetary Fund step in and say, you can settle your trades in International Monetary Fund special drawing rights. So countries will hold these credits at the IMF, turn in their dollars, or countries will begin holding each other's currency to settle trades, and they won't use dollars to settle all trade. Then you'll see pressure being put by the International Monetary Fund for austerity in the United States. We'll have requirements that we cut back on programs and cut back on spending, much like in Europe. That could even lead to riots in the United States like you're seeing in Europe. You're going to see pressure and discussions about a North American currency again. I think combining with Mexico's out of the question right now, with Mexico's drug war and instability, but the Canadian dollar's at a par and continuously strong against the U.S. dollar, and combining those two currencies is going to make sense to the internationalists, globalists. So I think you're going to see pressures like this occur, and Congress is going to have to deal with the fact that it's going to be mandated, especially if we need an International Monetary Fund bridge or assistance to meet our sovereign obligations. What happens is interest rates start going up. Costs a lot more to borrow. The Fed runs out of an ability to buy Treasury debt any longer. The Fed runs out of an ability to expand its balance sheet just by another $600 billion of Treasury debt. Interest rates go up. It becomes more difficult to finance the debt. And we begin looking at the International Monetary Fund for an international solution, which imposes austerity on the U.S. Congress and the U.S. people. Watch what's going on in Europe. Ultimately, the euro might break up. Germany may just decide it doesn't want to sustain countries like Greece and Ireland. There may be two tiers. There may be a euro that's restrained, limited to 5 or 6 states. And same with a dollar and a Canadian dollar might combine as a regional solution along strength. But you're going to have very, very difficult in unstable currencies as a result, wild fluctuation.
Well, let me spend a few more minutes in Fantasyland, in the Matrix virtual reality, where we can actually do something about this. And we see it coming. We've seen it coming. It's upon us. We're in the midst of an ongoing collapse of the dollar. If they had the will, what could Congress do about it?